Hello folks. So I was in the middle of making a video, but background sound got in the way of it and it made feedback happen. My phone is very sensitive. So the purpose of this video is to be part 4 of Drop Shot Concepts of a Redneck, which is a small series that I have had for a little bit on my YouTube channel. As my cat tries to tear my pack apart because he loves rubbing his chin over everything. And things have changed to a point. Stop it. He's very affectionate, but he's a pain in the ass. That's why his name is Butthead. I've noticed a trend, especially during the summertime, that a lot of the bait fish are running a lot. Stop. I love them, but Jesus. And the water column is very hot until the very bottom. So they have this tendency to really just lay on the bottom and not do much. They're uncomfortable. They're cranky. They don't like to move. So if they eat something, it's because they really have a keen interest and it matches a lot of what they eat. So most of what in my pack is no further than 5 inches at the most. And that's only because they're traditional finesse worms. From Softy brand, which I get on eBay, Robo Worm, typical Oxblood, Morning Dawn. I have some of their more advanced 3-inch, 2.5-inch shad style, which are great for drop shot, by the way, especially in bait balls, and more of their 5-inch shad minnow type representations in a couple of kind of camo coloration patterns. And like I said, the longest I have is those 6-inch, I believe is what they are. The softies have more flotation buoyancy than most of what I have in my pack. I do get Z-Man from time to time. Their trick shots work really well and they are very buoyant. But all of what I have in here is either mimicking some type of regular bait fish or bluegill in nature, color patterns and whatnot. So I'm not wanting this to be nearly as long as any of my other videos, but backstory to why I'm doing this, people were asking me to explain why I have what in my pack and why. So that's what I'm going to do. But it's right now predicated off of the heat and the way that the fish are doing during the summertime through early fall. And even into the winter, these same size baits work exceptionally well. Excuse me. I got up way too early this morning. I didn't have nearly enough coffee. And I've been out in the heat most of the day. So I'm tired. So they're on the bottom. They're almost like belly deep in the bottom. They just don't want to move. And they have to really be enticed to do so. And I fish Dobson Ranch ponds a lot because I've had a permit since I was probably 17 years old. Maybe even a little younger, 1987, and I am 48. So I've been fishing those ponds a long time. There's a couple of spots that I know that most people don't go to, but I know that they have structure on the bottom and they will fish. But one of the phenomenons that happens on the Dobson ponds is they get a lot of thick, mad algae on the bottom. They constantly have tree leaves and stuff falling in, palm fronds, they get on the bottom. So you get these layers and layers and they decay over time, over, the year period. Well, when it heats up, that becomes exponentialized to a high degree. Then all of a sudden you have this nasty, matted, broken mass of crap that gets bloated and decayed and floats up to the top. It's no longer on the bottom. Well, what that does underneath that mat is it makes the water intensely clear. And the fish can see a lot further. So finesse is much more of a way to go on those ponds. And I've used every technique over the years. But compared to what it was like in the 80s, it's not anywhere near that anymore. But they're still good fishing. Oh, excuse me. Wow, my power is gone for the day. So, I found it necessary to downsize. I am one of those guys that I will drop shot a 3/0 EWG worm hook and a 10-inch Magnum Zoom if I think that the action is correct for a situation. In fact, I'll throw through hyacinth. I don't know what they call the funky fronds. Depending on what state I'm in, I'm fishing. There's times where I will throw in the deepest cover like I'm punching mats, but I'll do it with a 1 ounce drop shot weight and a 3/0 hook with a nose hooked Magnum worm. I'm not afraid of that. If I lose my rig, well, so what? I got more line on my reel and I can tie on another rig. If you don't take the risk, you don't get the reward. I mean, it's that simple. But in a lot of cases of what I normally do, smaller finesse is the way to go. And by the way, smaller finesse can get some really big sea beasts of bass. And some really big bluegills, by the way, because they will hit up to a 3-inch bait. And the leeches that my friend DL Alvis gave me, those really rake in gills. They just, for some reason, pound the shit out of those things. So anyway, we'll go ahead and get into this pack, and one by one explain why and what. So, my first one right off the bat is my main robo worms and my softy baits. And, softy. I've always been saying softy. So they have a proprietary scent. They're super floaty, and they're 4.5. And I think this one is the Catawba perch, which is actually, I think, a Australian perch, and a color of it. And they are, like they said, they're very buoyant. They have a lot of motion to them without moving much. And, you know, they're pretty small, but they got kind of that little, they thin out and then they bulge, and then they got that little dink at the end. And they just kind of sit there and they just kind of wiggle. And you'll notice it goes from kind of a lighter lime to the darker, and it's got some different mitigated flakes, black, silver, and red. For some reason, this color just, I don't care what color spectrum the water is, these things get bit. And they didn't cost a lot of cash for these packs at all. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I got 220 packs for like $10 for a completely hand board. Well, come on, can't fight that. And along with that, he gave me samples of a bunch of his other colors too. So good on him. He got a customer out of that, you know. And then of course, this is the Orange Crusher Roboworm. It's got like that real orange bottom with the black. It works really good in semi-stained. And these are the Oxblood Light Red Flake. Great color too. Looks very natural. It's semi-translucent. Really good for clear water. Not bad for stained. I like a lot darker color for stained myself. I just find for me that it works. And that's the thing that's subjective about drop shot. You know, a lot of it is subjective. It really is. What works for you may not work for somebody else, and that may just be because of the confidence factor, really. The other thing with this pack is I've got to squeeze them all out because, well, I don't have a lot of space in it. And my second sleeve I have, and I just got new ones, Bray's Serious Baits. I still have some of the 3-inch leeches and a couple of 4-inch paddle tails in different colors in there. And the two primary colors I get from him right now are the PB&J. It's a purple with brown bottom. You can't really see it well in this light, but it's a phenomenal color. This purple into brown, just it gets stupid hit. And I've got more than one bait in that coloration, by the way. Not just from him, but from other people as well. And then I've just got flat black, classic color. They have a lot of motion. They're not the toughest soft plastic in the world, but the reaction you get out of bass with very subtle movement of the rod gets you hammered. If you have a chance to get online on Facebook, go to Bray's Serious Baits, buy them. You're not going to be disappointed. I'm very dedicated to these baits. And he's got other kinds, but I like these ones. And that's something I'm going to have to fix later. Some of these factory packs I cut down a little bit so they'll fit in the sleeve. Have not done that for these yet. I need to. And next sleeve is more of my Robo Worm. So I have the they're 2.5. I've got typical black translucent silver shad, Aaron's Magic, which is kind of brown, green, blue, and then into black. It's a really unique color. It's got a lot of variance to it. Then I've got more of the super translucent with a lot of silver flake. That one works really good in bait balls. And then these are the 4-inch more shad pattern, minnow pattern that I was talking about. These are the kind of blue brown camo, and these are the brown and silver with a little bit of green. Robo Worm, they have so many colors, man. So many colors. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then since it's in the factory, I've also got the baby rainbow trout, which is actually called prism shad. And as you can tell, it's got kind of a rainbowy color to it. It really works well in clean water. So I'll bring them out from time to time. And, I've got multiple things in some of these sleeves, and then I've just got a couple in others. So I got to be real careful how I put them back. I don't want to crush them, but I also don't want all the air to be in them too. So it's puffing up my pack really big. So bear with me. This is kind of one of those things that's just kind of off the cuff. I'm not regular organized like writing my stuff out like I usually am. Now, interesting to note, as far as cats go, explaining butthead further, I have a tall cylinder fan behind me giving me ventilation. It's a very silent fan. The one that's making all the noise is a very small cube that my roommate got for me that moves a lot of air for its size that I put down here on my side table so that he can lay here in comfort. Guess where he's at? In the middle of the floor. Oh, now that I mentioned his name, now he pops up. Don't you? Don't yawn at me. Get in the breeze. Get cooled off, dummy. Oh, he's so silly. And then, getting further into my pack and necessitating laying the pack down, I recently got into another company whose motto is, don't brag about the one you lost, brag about the ones you caught. The company's name is Tournament Strong. I've talked with the owner and maker of these baits. He is very customer service oriented. These are available on eBay and on his website online. I have a PB, these are 3-inch by the way, PB&J, and they kind of look like a do nothing. You know what, let me take this one out. they're kind of do nothing looking. It's also another kind of purple with that brown. They temper out to the tip. They represent any kind of baitfish you would think of. They've got these little segments that make them move really easy side to side. You nose hook one of these, and they move so well in the water. If you're suspended, and that's one thing I'm going to talk about with drop shot in a minute, because drop shotting suspended is very effective, actually. A lot of people don't do it. And this one's pretty obvious. I don't take these ones out. These are called Witch's Brew in color, and they have a very purple top and a very translucent chartreuse on the bottom. Very easy to see even in dingy water. The name of these baits are slammers. They're mostly for smallmouth, but they were great for largemouth as well. And I'm buying based on my experience, so by no means should you feel compelled to go and get the same stuff, because what works for you works for you. And I firmly believe that. So one of my other really favored companies, and it's so dirt cheap, is Zoom. Zooms are so cheap and work so well. I stumbled across the Super Salt Plus Series Z Drop Worm, which is a 4-inch. And I've got Watermelon Red. And these are what I was getting hit on hardcore today in that clear water. They have a really good component of red flake and pepper flake. And the thing a lot of people don't realize about bass, and I'm going to impart this a little bit of wisdom because I learned this. I've studied a lot of stuff in my time. Been fishing for a long time. I studied a lot of Doug Hannon, the bass professor, I guess is what his name was. Caught like more double-digit bass in his time than anybody else in history. And he was talking about the color spectrums that bass see, and he didn't really have the scientificness as much as some of the recent stuff that I've seen. And I started studying other marine biologists' aspect of things, because bass see quite a bit different than other fish. And I'm going to get into that in a minute. This color by Zoom, that wasn't cool. Oh well. Is called Green Weenie, but it doesn't look like green at all, really. It's got some. It's very translucent, though. It's almost a rainbow trout color again. It's just got that whole kind of translucent purple to green, clear. The thing with these that I like is that they kind of have this ridge to them. And it makes this wave motion to them that's a little bit unique compared to some of the other ones I have. And they just flat out get bit. That other one with the red flake, man, I got hammered on those today. Absolutely hammered. I lost a fair amount, though, because I wasn't paying attention. Which is not stupid. Well, it was stupid. It was not cool. I lost a channel catfish. I could tell by all the, when you get a channel cat on a hook and you bring it up, it's got all the gunk from its gums. Yeah, it was all over my drop shot hook. I was so mad. And I'm not going to take these out because they really stink bad. But another really inexpensive bait that you should go look at is a brand called Table Rock Bait and Tackle Company, and the series is called Chompers. They are salt and garlic infused. I made a post talking about how my car smelled for like 3 hours. That's the bait responsible. But they work. Good God, do they work. In these circumstances, and they're just a standard 4.5 inch. No, they're 4-inch. Standard 4-inch finesse worm that just stinks to high hell. And if you throw them anywhere where you're not getting hits, you're going to get hit. They're impossible for fish to ignore. They stink so bad. Like if you didn't wash your in between your toenails for like 3 weeks, it's about what they smell like. That's why I ain't opening it. I don't want to kill my cat. And in the kind of one-off and custom, this brand, Set the Hook, is more smallmouth oriented in the way that they make their baits. And if you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm trimming these packages to make them fit better. I intended to quite some time ago. The color on this one I'm about to show you is called Lawn Goby. There are quite a few colors. This one is another translucent style, but they're very unique, and they're salt impregnated too, by the way. They're only a 3-inch. They still got kind of that semi-split tail. You see how they kind of have that ridge? These are really, really super heavy for their size. They have a lot of real minuscule flake to them, but they're still kind of translucent. In clear water to slightly like tea brown, these things are easy for the fish to see, and they move with this thump and subtlety that just really brings in some monsters, considering the size of the bait. Another one, and I've been buying in bulk lot packs, so I've been getting a lot of volume baits. If you've not ever had missile baits of any kind, or reaction innovations, I've got reaction innovations as well, but these bomb shots are stupid in the water. They are so badass. This particular color, I don't have the patch on it yet anymore, but it's basically a kind of dark back to that like fall craw type brown, but a little bit brighter. These and the hot pink, dude. Yeah, wow. I haven't gotten hit that hard. They're salt impregnated and anise, star anise and oil impregnated as well. Very subtle but very sharp scent. Very recognized by fish. They like it. This pack is when nothing else is going to work for me. This is from a friend of mine, DL Alvis, and he makes these. They are a Reaper, leech style. He's got his own mold. They're very small, 3-inch. They got a small main body. I nose hook them. They flow really, really well, and these are absolutely obliterated by bluegill, and also by fairly big bass, and smallmouth munch the shit out of these things. This color, this real like subtle flake that it has, it gets absolutely obliterated on these lakes here in Arizona. For some reason, with the watercolor, they just work. And it's purely recreational on his part. He does them because he wants to do baits. He happened to be in a really generous mood, which I know he is. He's a pretty cool dude. He just said, hey, I happen to have some whole like pack of 50 or more that I'm not using. If you want them, I'll bring them to you. He literally drove all the way to my house and gave me these baits. That's pretty cool for the community. That's the way shit should be, really. And then my last ones that I got today, and I'm so ready to put these out there just to try them. But they're from Lucky Strike in Japan. They are the Bass Magic Shaky Tail, and I got them in a color called Santa Cruz, which is a pepper flake and a translucent to deep red, which is one of the other reasons I'm going to lead into this discussion about color and the way bass see. These things, for a while, Lucky Strike was not selling in the USA. I don't know why they stopped. I just know that for a while they were not here. And people were clamoring for them. They were just absolutely going, hey, where did you guys go? What's going on? The guy that does the show Smallmouth Crush on YouTube, he had a whole bunch of them. He said they were his favorite bait. So I happen to really like a lot of Mr. Smallmouth Crush's content. I really do. Especially when it comes to drop shot. So I said, well, I need to research this. Well, lo and behold, over the last few months to a year, Lucky Strike has been like, people in the U.S. are buying these baits. They also noticed that Molinex, which is a European company, very popular all over Europe and Australia, was increasing sales here in the U.S. as well. And I fully intend to get some Molinex baits, 5150 Plastics, and a couple other brands. I'm going to have to get a hard box at that point that I can, a big hard box with storage for these different baits, because I can't keep pulling around. I mean, look, this is not how, it's not supposed to be that thick. It's not supposed to be football. It's supposed to be flat. It's too much. So I'm going to have to get a nice, deep, big, probably Bass Mafia box when I can afford to. So about color and bass. So the two spectrums, because of the way that the rods and cones in their eyes work, smallmouth and largemouth, they see mostly in the red and green spectrum. They're not colorblind. That's just the spectrum of color that they see. But everything in between that, to them, is a variation of one of those two, and if you combine them together, like red flake and green pumpkin, you've got a really lethal combination, because they can key on it very easily because of the way they see. Dark purples and blacks, those things are gradients of those red and greens to them. So what you think they see in the water, it's not what they see. So I tend to, depending on the clarity of the water, go with dark reds and greens, or greens and reds with a lot of flake of some kind that sparkles in the water. It looks like bait fish. You'll notice that most of my stuff was small because I want subtlety. There's a lot of patchy grass on the bottom in places that I fish. There's also a lot of rock. So if I know I'm going to a pond that has a lot of rock, I'll put a cone weight on, or a ball weight, not a cylinder. If I'm going where there's a lot of grass, cylinder. If I go where I'm going to throw in weeds, possibly lose my rig, it's a cylinder. It goes through things like that much better. And by the way, the 1.5 to 3 inch baits for crappie, the more magnum size, all the way up to more magnum size, work really, really good on a smaller hook on a drop shot with a lighter weight on suspended crappie. It's phenomenal how it catches crappie, I'm telling you. And so this is one of the reasons, well, it's the two reasons that I'm really kind of focusing with what I've got in my pack now. Because the bass, if they're in a lake, are at least suspended or on the bottom, or they're tight in cover because they're getting out of that heat. And like I said, they're cranky, moody, uncomfortable, they don't want to move. And if you entice them to hit, it's because you pissed them off, and you're gonna get eaten. Basically, they think you're prey at that point. Smallmouth and largemouth. All of these baits in salt, absolutely phenomenal. Are there other brands out there that are just as good? The Strike King Dream Shot, perfectly good. There's a few others, perfectly good. Yum brand, Yamamoto. Excuse me. They're all good. These are just what I have right now. And I'm a real big fan of Strike King when it comes to other things. I'm a real big fan of Rapala when it comes to other things. But when it comes to soft baits, uh, I've just kind of done my own thing. And one of the reasons that I do things the way that I do as well, that it's not dependent on fish behavior itself, is that most people expect to go, okay, I'm going to throw a robo-worm, or I'm going to throw a this, or I'm going to throw a that. So that's kind of the reason why the trick shots have been kind of out of the way. The missile baits kind of out of the way. I haven't fished them for a couple weeks. And I've kind of used these ones that most people don't use because I want different in the water. Different gets attention where everybody else is throwing the same shit. And because unless you're going to a private pond with permission or with the understanding that people are allowing it, the ponds that are the normal ponds to go fish, they are heavily pressured here in Phoenix. Heavily. All the surrounding areas, all the way through the middle of Phoenix. Because we have so many people that fish. So many. And that's one of the reasons that I drop shot. The other reason that I'm very much in drop shot and slip bobber fishing with lures and with bait is because my left shoulder's fucked. And as much as I heal it, if I don't constantly stretch it, I can't do the things like my big, 7 to 14 inch glide baits on my, 9-foot freaking Dobbins monster broomstick rod. It just wears me the fuck out. So, this is a technique where I'm comfortable all day long, and it's effective. And it's a growing segment that many people, in fact, most people at some point in time that bass fish are going to throw a drop shot because it's ubiquitous with getting numbers. But if you really, really think, and I'm not talking about looking at your electronics and studying the water. I'm not talking about just checking the temperature. I'm talking about if you really think, what is the bass thinking right now instinctually? Instinctual fishing for me has accounted for way more big fish than pure science and theory on their own. When you're on the water for a certain amount of time in your life, there's just certain things that you start to notice. There's certain things that I pay attention to the moment I get to a body of water. First thing I look for is anything obvious cover-wise. I don't care if it's a single stump in the water, a boulder off the shoreline, overhanging trees. I'm paying attention to it. I don't have one of those eye bobber things. I don't have one of those deeper sonars. I don't have that bullshit. I have my eyes. So I put on my flip down polar shades that go over my regular glasses so I can see more detail in the water. And I start studying. And then I throw something and I pay attention to the response I get. And I guarantee you, I've gotten more out of instinctual than I ever have on electronics. Don't get me wrong, I'm not discounting electronics because they flat out work. If you plop yourself on top of structure and you see what's going on down there, you have a better idea what's going to happen if you do something. That's just physics. But instinctual fishing goes a long way, especially with drop shot. If you see and observe, you're going to get a better idea if you really stand there for a minute and think about it instead of just going, whoa, I think I'll throw over here, which so many people do. Just because you think a part of the pond looks good does not mean a fish is going to sit there. So you got to really stop and think about it for a minute. Like I know, for instance, on all the Dobson lakes, the ends of the lakes where they have the culverts that go from one pond to the other, and those deep parts, that's it. Oh, you can get bass on the other parts of the lake, but you're always going to have at least one big ass monster sitting in one of those pits. And you can walk that whole entire 7-pond system and pull some monsters out. You can also go along the shelf in the shoreline to go concrete shelf down, out, and then down again. And that's something I do. I toss under docks. I toss under boats. When I have a float tube, I get on Los Altos, which is the main one, which is where I grew up, and I go to every damn pontoon boat that's on the other side of that pond because nobody else touches that stuff. And there's very, very few people that get on a kayak or anything else on those ponds anymore. It's not the same as it used to be. And I purely think instinctually from a fish's perspective. That's why I've got in my pack. And the reason that it's 120 in the fucking shade right now is another reason, because they are on the bottom or in the deepest shade they can get into. And they're patterns that are easy to figure out. If you take 5 minutes, if you walk down a path and you see a patch of water and you just look and go, okay, what would bass do? You're gonna get more fish, especially if you're a handful of colors. I don't stray too far outside of that red and green spectrum. A lot of peanut butter and jelly, purple and brown, green pumpkin with heavy red flake, and red with pepper flake, salt and pepper. Red with salt and pepper flake, man, it gets fucking hammered. So, what, you gonna come up and say hi now? So now he's up here. See? There he is. No. Yeah, now he's gonna come up and he's gonna carouse. So anyway, that's the reason why, and that's all I got for now. And now I've got cat in my face.